Okay, right, welcome everybody. Welcome to our YouTube channel. My name is Lorna, and today I am here with Lucy and with Mer. And we are going to be talking broadly about things that make us happy. And that refers to a specific exercise that we know of that is outlined by William Bloom in a book called The Endorphin Effect. So before we get started, just to say that I hope that you are subscribing to our channel and enjoying our YouTube channel. If you haven't yet subscribed, then do press that subscribe button and that like button if you're enjoying these sessions. And without further ado, let's get started. So Lucy, can I introduce you first? So you are an ex-Chrysalis student?
I am, yes. So I did my level 4 and 5, finished just before the pandemic. Well, just coming into the pandemic, just managed to get through the training and the workshop before all that started. And yeah, although I'm not practicing as a counsellor at the moment, I do, you know, every day something that I learned at Chrysalis will come to my mind, just my way of being. I've definitely sort of improved the way I can listen and hear people, and my empathy has improved a lot just because of the course. So I think, you know, despite the fact I don't use it routinely as part of my work, it's a really massive part of my life.
Oh, great. That's so nice to hear. So nice to hear. And Mer, welcome.
Hi. I'm teaching on the level 3 course at the moment, and my background is I'm a licensed clinician, a licensed therapist, and I did all of my education and my training in the United States in Chicago. I was there for nearly 20 years. And I'm a licensed clinical professional counsellor, and I specialise in working with people with addiction issues and trauma. So that's my story, and I've taught in both American and UK universities, and now.
Oh, we've just frozen there. We just frozen for a moment. Now you're teaching for Chrysalis. Right.
Yeah, yes. I've taught for the University of Highlands and Islands, and now teaching with the Chrysalis, and very much enjoying it.
Okay, that's brilliant to hear. So I also teach for Chrysalis and have done for quite some time. I teach level 4 and 5 and enjoy it immensely. You know, one of the things that I remember we used to teach, I'm not quite sure if we still do now, was an exercise called strawberry picking. And what that exercise was about was essentially, you know, holding on to those positive memories and those positive experiences. So, you know, and making lists for ourselves of things that make us happy. And they don't have to be really grand things. They can be sort of quite small things, you know, so things that immediately come to mind. So tastes that make us happy, smells that make us happy. And we've been speaking a little bit about this between ourselves before we started this recording today, and just noticed some of those things. You know, perhaps we can share some of those things with you. And I wonder what that brings to mind for the people listening here as well. So, well, what kind of things did we come up with? What did you come up with, Lucy?
Yeah, so my predominant first sort of things that came to my mind were really around smells, lots of stuff around smells. So rain after it's been really dry, when you get that kind of funny smell after we've had a really dry spell. Cut grass, which I think is a pretty classic one. It's just so fresh and nice. Mm-hmm. I like the smell of toast and freshly ground coffee. Mm-hmm. And I think, and one of the ones that came to my mind, and I think people probably know.
Oh, we're just losing you a bit there, Lucy. We're just losing you a bit.
The smell of a vine tomato. Okay, is that better? Can you hear me now?
The smell of vine tomatoes, did you say?
Did, yeah, that's
Right.
one from my definitely one from my childhood, because my granny and granddad used to grow tomatoes, give us a tomato plant every year to look after and grow, me and my
Right.
sister, and it's just that smell. Yeah, so those were the main sort of smells. And then for touch, it was a real mixture, so sort of textures, crisp sheets, so freshly ironed bedding. I love getting into fresh iron bedding, and still to this day, my poor husband, if I've changed the bed, he's not allowed in it first. I've got to get in first. Really, really smooth pebbles that just feel so silky, and then sand on my feet, but it has to be dry sand, not wet sand. Dry sand that will brush off very easily. So if you go to like Shell Island in Wales and there's sand dunes everywhere, that kind of sand, sort of the soft sand.
The silky sand. Yeah.
Silky, yeah, but also the roughness as well, which is odd. So yeah. And then I think,
yeah, there's a few things there already, isn't there? And I would imagine a few things that perhaps some of our listeners are already kind of making connections with as well. And for me, the moment you mentioned tomato plants, it's like that's definitely one for me as well. And I was one of those late starters as far as tomatoes were concerned. It's like all through my childhood, I hated tomatoes, but loved the smell of the plants. And for me, it's not the actual tomato fruit, it's the leaves, it's the actual plant itself. It has that really unique smell. And I mean, I can smell it now that you've mentioned it. It's a really strong one for me. And another one of my smells is diesel, which I think is an odd one. But I think that diesel, I mean, it's interesting because I'd said to a friend who is a bit of a petrol head some time ago that I love the smell of petrol, and he said, no, the smell you mean is diesel, isn't it? When I described why. And it reminds me of fairgrounds. So it reminds me of going to fairgrounds as a kid, and that they would only come around once every so often, like once a year. They'd be on the on the local common, and it would be a real event, and there would be so much like color and brightness and so on and so on. And it's like, yeah, that's not petrol, that's diesel, that's from the generators. Yeah. So those are the ones that spring to my mind. How about yourself, Mer? What were your starting points?
Oh, starting point. The first thing that came up for me was probably my dog, and just and I think about, I love the smell of his fur, and then the texture, the feeling of his fur. It's very soft, especially if he's groomed, and then it's kind of like the baby fur that's underneath once you groom him, and it's very soft and gentle. So and that's very soothing. And I think a lot of people can relate to that who've got animals, that they're quite soothed by their animal. And I know for myself, that's something for me that I enjoy, that soothes me. He brings me that joy as well. And then another goofy one, just talking about, I don't know how many people relate to this, but when you're wearing maybe tight clothing or tight socks, or something makes a mark on your skin, the indent of it. I love the feeling of that mark once you take it off. So maybe a tight watch, or your socks, and they leave little marks.
Right.
I've always, even as a kid, like that. And I find it very comforting.
Okay, that's a really interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. It's my husband kind of sits there and looks at me when when I'm sitting there like pressing on the indents and going, I love that, and he goes, okay, right. But so, and actually, just talking about a dog again, we also have a collie, and she sheds a lot. And I remember this as a wee girl too. We used to have German Shepherds, and they get the kind of tufts of hair when they're shedding their new coats.
Yeah.
And I still to this day as an adult, and I remember doing it as a child, I love taking all those tufts out.
My dog does that to our cat. She does. The cat's like, what are you doing? But she's just picks.
I sit at night, our collie's shedding at the moment. And I've never seen a dog shed so much in my life. And she just lies on the floor, and I sit there and peck, and I find it the most soothing. I love it. you know, and she likes it too. She just lies there and just absolutely loves it.
Well, that's really fascinating, isn't there? Because I mean, there is, I mean, as you say, Lucy, your cat and dog as well. This. I mean, I watched the ponies in the field that we have behind us. Not my ponies, but the local farmers, and they groom each other as well. So they sit scratching each other's necks and so on. And I wonder whether there is something quite innate there in that. Mer, I just wanted to mention that earlier you'd also mentioned that your dog is a therapy dog, and maybe a bit later on we could come back to that, because I think that would be a really interesting topic for our listeners to hear about. Listeners, if you are enjoying where we're going so far, then do remember to like or subscribe to our channel, won't you? But coming back then to okay, so some other things, and so when we say that we enjoy this, when we say that we get something from this, what is it that we get from it? When we say that we love this, so what does it do for us? And and why therefore does it feel important to remind ourselves of these things that we love? What that feeling is. I don't know, what is it? I mean, it could be many things, couldn't it? But it's like a kind of cozy. It's it's a knowing feeling. How would you describe it?
Yeah, I think as I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it, and I was the other night there when I was thinking about what we were going to be talking about today. When I look back to with regards to the touch of a dog or pulling out the old hair on a dog, it sounds cruel, but it's not. The dog likes it. It's not. I want to say that to all the listeners, and I'm sure they'll know what I mean. But this harks back for me to childhood. So I think there's some distinction there. There's no doubt in my mind that was something for me that was a good memory for me of childhood. I spent a lot of time with dogs. My mum used to breed and show German Shepherds when we were very young. So we had a lot of dogs, and I think there's a memory thing there for me that's a good memory and a positive memory, and I spent a lot of time with the dogs, etc. So I know that, and I think that's what happens a lot when you think of these positive things. They take you to a place that's soothing. I keep using that word, soothing. Yeah. And it soothes it. I know when I spend time with my dog, or if I'm down, etc., and I give him a cuddle, one of the first things I do when I go up in the morning, my husband makes fun of me because he's like, the dog gets more cuddles than he does. The dog is usually in between us, and I just sit and cuddle him for ages, and that's soothing for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I kind of look at it, and the connection to memory.
Yeah, so good feelings, and soothing, comforting is certainly one. I'd say for me, with the smell of diesel, that would be a different type of feeling. That would be one of kind of exhilaration of, okay, I'm going to be taken on these real fast rides, or something that was just like really eye-opening in terms of color and lighting and flashing lights and lots going on, lots of people being around, something extraordinary. So a different type of feeling, an excited feeling, I think. So it's so different, what we would say what are positive feelings. Does that kind of link in with you, Lucy?
Yeah, when I'm thinking about the things that came to my mind, they all kind of link back to particular times in childhood, and all of those things link back to good family times, or good when I've had, felt that sense of smells that perhaps give me that sense of security. So things like the smell of coffee, the smell of toast, being safe at home, I think it's a safe, it's about safety and contentment, I suppose, having the things that I need, and just feeling safe and secure, and things, and almost a carefree feeling. So as a child, those tomato plants that my granny and granddad gave me were like really important, and I was looking after them and I was growing them and I was proud of them, and I was proud when I got a little yellow flower and proud when the first tomato came and I got to eat it. So that kind of accomplishment, and I think it's almost, as a child, those things are important to you, but it's when you look back on, when I look back on them now and I see them, they were then, I can see what a difference they made to me. It's nice. And, you know, yeah, things that I probably took for granted as a child, I now appreciate and am grateful for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. But yet still, when we're saying, well, we took them for granted, you know, we can sit down and think, okay, well, what makes me happy? And those things are right there. And that's really, that I personally found that really surprising, that, you know, I can sort of whiz my mind back to the things that make me happy. And I guess there it's, you know, maybe it's how we store memories or something, but it's all right, well, linking with a feeling first. What do I mean happy? And then where does that take me? You know, what's my little happy store there? Or what's my little excited store or inspired store or whatever? And, you know, and then finding that those things, you know, are still there. And I guess the purpose of the exercise was to actually, you know, keep reminding ourselves of, you know, these things that are there, because, you know, we can go through our day-to-day life and, you know, forget those things, or not realize about some of the day-to-day things that are really important to us, like you're saying, about, you know, having a cuddle with your dog in the morning, to recognize that that's something that is important for you. And, you know, it's not a big thing. It doesn't cost a lot of, you know, money, energy, anything like that, but it's something that is there that we incorporate into our lives.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think so. And I think it's about, you know, part of that, not to go too off topic, is about gratitude. You know, the gratitude of, this is an animal that's been in my life for 10 plus years now. And he was a rescue, and he came home with me from the States 7 years ago now, and he's a big part of my life. You know, in so many ways, he's been through some of the toughest times with me. I know he's a dog, but he's been there, steadfast through all, and it means a lot to me. So there's a lot of comfort that comes along with having them, and I think people can relate to that, the comfort that their animals bring them.
Yeah.
And you know, I was just thinking there, and I was thinking about, you know, when you think of all your different senses, something for me I love is just water, being in the water and swimming.
Yeah.
And the senses that come along with that, or when you get into a jacuzzi or a hot tub and the warm water hits your body and the feeling that comes with that, it's lovely as well, you know. So and when you talked about fairground with the diesel smell, I thought about candy floss. If you think about the smell you get when they're making candy floss, it's a really potent smell, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that for me, it's that wonderful pink color as well. So for me, I love that sort of, you know, that pale pink color. Yeah. So it's a fascinating thing, isn't it? And I think part of this as well is to not just to think, well, you know, what are those memories that we've made, but the ones that we will continue to make as well, and that actually how important it is to hold on to those. As you say, it's a gratitude thing. It's like, okay, this is you know, this is good, this is great, this is comfortable. I like this. I'm grateful for this. I'm glad that this is in my life. And to, you know, and to just appreciate some of those, you know, sometimes really big things, but sometimes really small things as well.
Yeah, and I think that's what we were talking about earlier was, you know, as I've gotten older, what I place gratitude with is much different than 20 years ago for me. And it's very much smaller stuff that I think brings me more pleasure to my life, brings me more happiness to my life. This, you know, my little boys and touching their hands and their skin and how soft their skin is, or nuzzling into them when they're, you know, when they're cuddling me for their mummy cuddles. Like all those things are the connection, and just and make me feel better. And they're so important, and it's having gratitude for those small things that they don't cost any money.
Yeah, and maybe that's a really important thing, because it was just striking me when you were talking, Lucy, that there may be some people, certainly some people who we may work with in our therapy practice, who who have less or few positive childhood memories, but to actually be able to find, hopefully everybody has inspirational moments or something that is really meaningful to them, and and can still recognize, it's like, okay, well, this is who I am, and this is what I enjoy, and this is what makes me happy, and this is what makes me feel good, and to find those things, and if they aren't memories, to actually find them in the present, and then to hold on to those, whatever they might be, whether that is a TV program that we love, or or being able to do certain things with our friends, or or to have a pet who we adore, as you're saying, Mer. All of those things, is to find those things that bring those positive feelings out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that when people look, there will always be something, even if it's something small, like you said, even if it's something that didn't cost, well, a lot of the time they don't cost any money, these things, but all of the things that came to my mind were literally just there. They were there. So I think for me, it's about just having the time to stop and think about these things, and giving yourself the space to just have a moment with these things, and just reminding yourself of the gratitude that is there, that you had for these things, whether it was in the past or whether it was this morning, and I think it's important, and I've certainly started to try and do that more frequently, which is just give myself a little bit of time in a quiet place with nothing other than me and my head, and just have a bit of a sort of a reflect, and a few moments to just have a bit of a think about, what is good, what is making me happy at the moment. And it certainly does help me, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mer, you mentioned that well, your dog has had quite an interesting life so far. So I was just one of the things that I love is I love being on planes, and haven't had the benefit of being able to do that for quite a long time now, because of the situation and so on. But I particularly love taking off in planes, and really love that kind of sort of being pressed in the back of the seat.
Okay.
And just the kind of energy of like, whoa, we're going. And I was just imagining your dog there on the trip over from America to the UK. Actually, he's also been on a plane, and has traveled across continents.
He has.
And he's specially trained, as a therapy dog.
Yes, it's something, one of the hospitals that I was employed at had a robust assisted animal therapy program, and not just with the dogs or cats, but with horses and llamas, etc. That came in and were part of the program. So it had a kind of ranch style stable, I guess you could say, at the back, where the patients were able to be part of helping out with the animals, etc. And a lot of people who have been through mental health issues or addiction issues maybe haven't worked for a long time, or haven't, so they were very much a part of looking after the animals and taking care of them with the staff that we had there. So I just, and it's quite a popular thing in the United States. You see with a lot of residential rehabilitation centers, they have these robust animal therapy programs. They're amazing. So I'm a big proponent for them. And, with my guy, he's just a gentle soul. He's a mixed terrier. His name is Bono. I didn't give him that name. He came along, he was rescued from Kentucky and came up from Kentucky, and yeah, he's just been a big part of a lot of different stages in my life. But to be fair, I flew him home and it cost thousands to fly him home. And you know, it's very stringent and they have to go through quarantine, etc. So yeah, by the time he was picked up by my lovely sister in Edinburgh, who got him he flew home the day before I did from America when I moved home. He was a shaken mess by the time he was picked up. She had to go in, and actually the staff asked her to go in and get him because he wouldn't come out of his crate. I think it just really freaked him out. But you know, to go back to me, the benefits of animal therapy and the benefits of seeing what an animal can do. There's a lot of people who don't always enjoy or like talk therapy. It's not for them. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of people light up and really respond to an animal being in the room. I've seen it being utilized in group therapy very successfully for therapeutic purposes and allowing people to open up a little bit more. So it really, gosh, I mean, Lorna and I could do a whole Chrysalis on the couch about animal therapy, to be honest with you. But I don't want to take up too much of your time. But yeah, he's just a huge part of my life, and I love him to pieces. He's up there with the love for my kids, to be honest with you. So
he sounds amazing, and you know, it kind of strikes me, Mer, that actually, you know, in some kind of interesting way, it's almost as if he's been on a similar journey to perhaps some of us who decide to train and work as counsellors. That actually, you know, there is something that we are discovering about ourselves, or something that we, you know, realize about our situation and so on, and how we want to kind of take that forward. You know, that he started off as a rescue dog, and you know, now perhaps, you know, naturally, empathically know what people need who are in some kind of difficult situation or distress.
Yeah, for sure. And just the gentleness that comes along with them. And sometimes I think that's what we need, and what animals can offer is solace, a time to reflect, unconditional love. You know, and you know, they don't care what you're wearing, how you look, what size you are, how you're dressed, you know. And so I think an animal can be a very powerful part of you know, not just your senses and being a part of your life, but you know, it can be a very powerful part of treatment and getting well for wellness.
Yeah, and there's something else there that, you know, is just coming to my mind as well. I don't know what you think about this, Lucy. Is, you know, is the clarity of responses that, you know, that animals show that sometimes we don't, that, you know, we hide our emotions sometimes from ourselves as well, so we don't give ourselves the time to even realize perhaps that something is making us happy. Whereas, you know, in my experience anyway, limited in terms of your experience, Mer, you know, you always know when dogs are happy, and you also know when they're feeling grumpy or when they're feeling sad. And the same with most other animals as well. You can just observe, you know, you can observe animals and just kind of know at least a lot of what's going on for them, you know, without projecting onto them or anything. It's like, well, you know, they seem to, you know, that they seem to be enjoying this or not enjoying this. Whereas we can be much more reserved in that, can't we? And I wonder whether that's something that, you know, this whole idea of, well, things that make us happy, whether it's also we need to allow that, you know, that joyfulness.
Yes, and I totally agree with you on that. And I think as well, in terms of animals, like you said, they are pretty much unconditional. You know, they don't have the kind of thing that humans have, the kind of worry of judgment, or they're just being, aren't they? They're just being who they are, which a lot of the time we can't be. So I wonder if in therapy, working with an animal in therapy, people can start to actually be themselves rather than being something that, you know, we're trying to perhaps hide certain ways of being that they don't think will be acceptable or something like that. So I think in that respect, there's also another aspect of animal, and this is like more about animal ownership rather than animal therapy. I think it's that sense of purpose that you have, that you are looking after this being, you're looking after this, you're, you know, if you
sorry.
After this, if you don't look after this being, he's not going to. Don't look after this being, he won't go to the vets when he needs to be. So it's that kind of sense of purpose that comes. So, you know, Mo was talking about people going in and looking after the animals at the stables, and I think that just gives a sense of purpose, doesn't it? Oh, and he's super cute. Look at that face.
Yeah.
Is this him? Is this him?
Yeah. Bono.
Oh wow! Welcome, Bono.
Bono is Chrysalis on the couch. Famous.
Yeah, completely agree, Lucy. It's you know, and perhaps, you know, I mean, we do a lot of work, don't we, and on, you know, in providing that positive, non-judgmental space for clients, so that, you know, so that hopefully our clients who we work with in therapy do feel comfortable, that they can relax and to be themselves. But it takes time for us to be ourselves, doesn't it? And maybe, you know, when we were even thinking about our list, you know, maybe some of the things surprised us that we put on our list of things that make us happy, simply because it's like, well, have I ever really given myself the time and the space to actually think that that makes me happy? Or have I just taken it for granted? Or, you know, do I spend enough time knowing the importance of feeling, if not always happy, joyful, at least content, comfortable, knowing that, you know, my state of mind is that life is good and that I like it, and all those things. So it's complicated, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think just something that maybe came to my mind then when you were talking about it, I don't sit down and think to myself, oh, you know, if I'm making a cup of coffee, for example, I won't think, oh gosh, that smell makes me happy. But so I do take it for granted a little bit that I probably do smell coffee every day, and I do enjoy the smell of it, but I don't recognize that it's something that's making me feel happy. Same as thinking about the sand on a beach. I won't necessarily think that the feel of sand on my feet is something that makes me happy. Yet when I go on the beach, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's sand. That's nice. Yeah. So it's like, it's about having it presented to me during the course of my life, I suppose. Those are the moments at which I will take joy from it, rather than sitting necessarily and thinking about the things that make me happy. So I think that sort of, going back to that space and time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, thinking about what makes you happy rather than having it come to you as part of your daily life, if that makes sense. Yeah. And just waiting for those things to think, and then feeling grateful for them when they're not there, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say in a roundabout kind of way.
Yeah. And you mentioned moments, and you know, I mean, so Maslow, Rogers talks about self-actualization, and often talks about that as well. It's not something that we have constantly in our life, but it is something that we touch on in moments, and, you know, and then it's about being present, isn't it? So it's like, okay, well, I will stop and look at that amazing sunset. I will take just a moment to think, well, you know, what is it that's actually happening in this moment? It's like, oh, I'm here with my dog and he's lovely and I adore him and his coat feels lovely. And, or I'm here with, oh, there's that lovely smell of coffee and I love that. And I'm just going to enjoy this, rather than letting our mind wander across all kinds of other things. Mm-hmm. So actually being present in that moment.
Well, I think being present is what I was just thinking about there, Lorna, when you said that, and I was thinking about it earlier. You know, if you look at how a dog works, they're in the moment all the time, constantly. You know, and one of the things about mindfulness and the movement with that is, you know, being in the moment, right there, appreciating what you have in front of you, as opposed to thinking about what you don't have. So, you know, I think the thing about thinking about smells and touch and what brings you happiness, etc., can be a very in the moment thing too, or you can try to live more in the moment with regards to that, even if it's the wind on your face, or, you know, sitting out in your back garden and listening to the birds, or, you know, watching your children playing and the sounds they make when they're having fun and screaming and laughing, and, you know, that noise, that sound is just, you know, can be very comforting as well for a lot of people. But again, like Lucy was saying, we don't always think about that in the moment, but if we become more mindful, then we can consider all of those things that make us happy and try to connect with them a bit better, a bit more.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And to bring them back into our lives a bit more as well. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Mer, that it's not all about, you know, trying to find the memories, is it? It's about actually being in the moment with those things. And then, you know, maybe we have the ability to put the two together. It's like, so, you know, I'm thinking, okay, so, you know, how do I bring that smell of fairground back into my life? How do I bring that smell of tomato plants back into my life? And, you know, and to actually, you know, continue to experience that and enjoy it when it can be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as well, something has just come to me. I think over the past year with the situation that we've all been in, it's certainly given me a lot of time to sort of realize that I, you know, there's things that I am very grateful for that I've not been able to do. So you said yourself, Lorna, about getting on a plane and that feeling of being pushed back into your chair when it takes off, and you've not been able to do that, but, you know, next time, because you're really going to not acknowledge it, and it's because it's almost not been there for a while. So the appreciation and the gratitude for it increasing when it's not there.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. And on the other side of things, it's also made me appreciate that actually it's, you know, it can be really nice just knowing that today I'm spending all day indoors, and, you know, and you know, I can make the most of that as well. So, you know, I don't always have to think, oh gosh, what could I be doing? What could I be doing? It's like, all right, well, this is what I'm doing and this is good enough.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of the time and that we are almost out of time. It feels like we've got a lot more that we could talk about here. But does that feel all right if we bring things to a close?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so to our listeners, thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this has in some ways, you know, inspired you to think about the things that make you happy and the things that you want to continue to make you happy, and what those memories mean to you and what those feelings mean to you as well. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you have, you know, please do like you know, subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. There's lots more of these discussions that we put onto this channel. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Thank you and goodbye.